Chapter 16. The Greywood Forest. Ruana awoke the next morning to beams of sun streaming through her tent. Since the sun had risen, she got up and went to get some breakfast. The others, with the exception of Carrie, were already awake and saddling their horses. The majority of their campsite had been torn down and put into bags, where the tents would wait until that night to be put back up again. "I'm glad you finally decided to get up," Corbett teased. Ruana rolled her eyes and kept walking. She continued until she reached the tree where she had tied Maya the night before. She saddled the horse, but left him there for a bit, as she could tell it would still be a while. Carrie had yet to be seen outside her tent on this fine morning. "Where is Carrie?" Althea asked. Ruana smirked. "She is still asleep. After all, it is only—" She glanced at the angle of the sun. "Oh, 9, I suppose." Althea grinned. She was standing by her horse. She reached into one of her horse's saddlebags and pulled out an instrument case. A violin case, to be precise. She opened and drew out a violin. She messed with the tuning knobs a bit and played several short, screeching notes. "How does that sound?" a grinning Althea asked. Ruana removed her hands from her ears. "It sounds like you have never played before or heard of a little thing called tuning." "Perfect, but I will let you know that I have played before, for several years in fact," Althea sarcastically said, as she walked toward Carrie's tent and played right outside. Carrie, who was immediately awakened, jumped up and out of bed, or rather her linen sleeping bag. She was looking as organized as you expect someone who had been sleeping on the ground for the last several hours, and had been awakened quite suddenly. "I am looking forward to not having to get up early every morning," Carrie yawned. "But if Althea pulls a stunt like that when we get there—" "I think we all are," Ruana muttered, referring to getting to Crenn Riaeth and not getting up early. Ruana rose early most days, whether on the road or not. This was a quality Carrie never gained, or understood. Once they finally got going, they had made good time until they came near to the forest. The Greywood Forest. One of the, well, I will allow Althea to explain. "We are nearing the Greywood Forest," Alette muttered, but it was loud enough to be heard. "What is that?" Ruana, who was in front of him, asked. Althea, who was in front of Ruana, turned in her saddle to look at her wide-eyed. "You do not know the Greywood Forest?" Ruana shook her head. "It is one of the most dangerous places on the way to Crenn Riaeth." "What is so dangerous about it?" Althea bit her lip. "I would rather not tell you." Ruana stared. "You cannot say that and not tell me." "Well, if you insist, I suppose I must," Althea said slowly. "But I do not blame you if you do not want to go near that dreaded place. It used to be a lush, beautiful forest, called the Pinewood. I believe from the name you can guess the trees that grew there. Think of any description of a lovely forest, and that was the Pinewood. The kings of old would visit very frequently. But then the enemy noticed the forest and how much it was loved by the kings of old. He made the forest into a terrible place. It is now—" Althea paused to gather her thoughts. "Now full of horrible creatures. It is so thick with fog you can hardly see them until they are little more than a sword's length away." "What sort of creatures?" "They are what are commonly found in any pine forest, but do not think they are normal creatures, for they are far larger than normal size, and far viler." Carrie heard Althea and looked very pale. Orgy and Scalene had heard of Greywood, but still looked nervous. Even Larky seemed to understand as she started whimpering and slowed down just a bit. Corbett's and Tolan's expressions looked as though they tried to remain the same, though fear was clearly taking over. It could hardly be said of Ruana that she scared easily, but Althea's description of the Greywood made her rather cautious. They rode on in absolute silence until they arrived near the edge of Greywood. "It is starting," Althea muttered, a nervousness filling her voice. The once bright sunny day was now slowly turning foggy. The fog was pouring out of Greywood itself, and everyone could feel the summer warmth beginning to fade into cold. Bitter cold. They put on their cloaks, but the cold was determined to make itself felt through their cloaks, and the cold was successful in its mission. The King's Road only went through a small corner of Greywood, but can still be treacherous. For in the Greywood you could meet every foul beast within that area, or none at all. During the day made it far less likely to meet the truly terrible ones. They hate light, even the sparse light that was just about to pierce through the tops of trees in the thick fog. But there were some terrible, though less terrible, that could bear at least the light. They slowly made their way through the forest. The going was slow due to the fog. They had been at it for a while before they heard a sound that was not their own. Having 2 dragons with you does help when going through the Greywood Forest. "What was that?" Carrie jumped a little. "An owl hooting," Ruana answered, swallowing. She then thought, "Am I really that scared of a mere owl?" But she knew she had a good reason to have that emotion. While she was pondering this, Althea sent an arrow flying in the direction of the hoot. Always good to let anyone or anything listening or watching know we are armed, Althea said, as if trying to calm herself. And we will not hesitate to use those arms. Yes, Ruana agreed. They continued, with sword in hand or arrows on the string. Everyone was on edge. Suddenly there was a flutter of bats overhead. The girls sent arrows flying. The lads watched, their swords of little use as the bats were flying out of reach of the blades. The dragon sent bursts of fire into the foggy air. Bats were dropping everywhere. Larky barked at the falling bats, bringing just a slight bit of humor. Just as quickly as they appeared, the bats disappeared, to everyone's relief. They continued in eerie silence. The only sound that could be heard was the soft hooves of the horses on the dirt path and the slight jingle of Larky's collar. The group could just start to see the faintest bit of light tearing away the darkness of the fog. It was literally the light at the end of the tunnel. The fog was just starting to slowly peel away. Look, Tolan pointed at the tiny bit of light. Am I the only one seeing that light? Nay, Althea's eyes widened. I see it. Their speed increased a bit, happy to be so close to the end of the Greywood. But they were not out yet, and in their bliss they were not paying proper attention to their surroundings. Suddenly, a bear ran out of the fog at Ruana. She just saw it in time to fire an arrow, but it only hit the bear's arm, and they did not make it happy, by any stretch of the imagination. She screamed as it clawed her arm. Althea and Kieri sent a flurry of arrows, but the bear did not stop. Alep dismounted and ran at it, his sword drawn. He fought bravely and slayed the brute. Ruana's arm was now very bloody, and she was trying to not scream from the pain, so no more creatures would be drawn to their party. Let me see your arm, Alep said. Ruana moved her arm his direction, wincing from the intense pain. He tore off the bottom of his cloak and wrapped the cloth around her arm. The bleeding slowed dramatically. Thank you, Ruana said. Alep nodded as if to say, You're welcome, as he remounted his horse, and they rode out of the Greywood. Chapter 17. The Tharlanden. It has been a few days since the Greywood. The companions are about to go through some rather odd terrain. Terrain that is known for its confusion and clouding of the mind. It is the Tharlanden, or literally, the clouding. The Tharlanden, Alep muttered. What? Althea asked, clearly panicked. Are we nearing that accursed place? Tolan muttered. The Tharlanden was well known in Mareme, though it had seemed to be almost mythical to Tolan and Althea alike. Unfortunately, it was no mere myth. Unfortunately, Alep answered. What are you talking about? Ruana asked. If you've not already guessed, having rarely left Kiplar gave her limited knowledge of the outside world, though that was rather rapidly changing on this adventure. The Tharlanden, Alep started. It is rather rugged terrain known for confusion. Tharlanden literally means clouding. It is not the clouding like that of the Greywood, rather, it is clouding of the mind. It used to not be this way, but the enemy came and corrupted it, like he did to the Greywood. Is there nothing we can do about it? Kieri asked. Everyone else could hear the conversation. Keep your mind fixed on truth found in the book, Alep answered. If you think about truth, it makes it that much harder for the clouding to occur. He paused. And keep together, and do not leave the road. They did as Alep suggested. Even doing so, they still felt disoriented. This confusion only grew as they traveled further into the Tharlanden. Which path do we take? Corbett asked. What do you mean? Alep asked. It splits off and they both look the same to me, Corbett answered. They're virtually identical, Orgy announced. Virtually identical? Alep muttered as he looked at the two paths, though he soon saw there were some differences. We shall take this one. It better matches the road we are currently traveling. They did as Alep said, though he should have looked a bit longer. He had chosen the wrong path. They continued down the road for what seemed to be a long time, though in reality it was no more than an hour, before they started to realize something was wrong. Why have we not yet passed through the Tharlanden? Alep thought. The road only goes through a small section of it. But since it looked as though they were close to the end of the Tharlanden, he said nothing. But the clouding had begun. It was not the end. After a while, he finally realized this. Alep pulled out the map and studied it. It only showed the Tharlanden. It also showed where they were in relation to the path. Wait! What is wrong? Ruana asked. Alep waved the map in the air. We are going the wrong way. Well, with that, panic and fear filled the group. How did that occur? Scalene asked. Evidently, when there was a fork in the road, I picked the wrong one, Alep answered, with obvious remorse. Though this shows 3 roads, not just 2 that were there when we happened upon it. Corbett was secretly grinning at Alep's failure. He had warmed up some to Alep, but there certainly was a rivalry, at least from Corbett's perspective. Then we must turn back, Orgy said. And this time we shall choose the correct road. Since there was nothing more to say, they turned around. It was a bit disheartening to have to go back over the country they had already covered. They finally made it back to the fork, where they had gone wrong. But they could not see the road they needed to tread upon, thanks to the Thorlinden. "Where's the road?" Corbett asked. "There are only two here." "According to the map, it lies directly in front of us," Alep answered. "So why can we not see it?" Corbett asked. He was looking at the map, and he could tell Alep was correct, but he could not figure out why the road would be invisible. "The Thorlinden has made it so we cannot see it," Alep said. "We can only follow the map, and it's never wrong." Corbett sighed. "I do not want to go on an invisible trail, but I see we have no choice." Corbett's words was a verbalization of how all of them felt. They prodded along the invisible road. It was odd. They heard the sound of horses' hooves on brick, but the ground appeared to them as thick grass. But such was the power of the Thorlinden. The land could make things appear differently, but it could not change reality. But they knew they were on the right path, for they could see the road and themselves on the map, and they were clearly on the path. How long they journeyed like this, I do not know. But slowly yet surely, the road became visible again. This greatly encouraged them. Before the day was over, they found that they could completely see the road again. "Are we out of the Thorlinden?" Ruana asked, once the road was completely visible. "We are nearly out of it," Alep said. "But we should continue on as long as we have daylight. I think we could get as far away from here as possible." "Agreed," Ruana said. No one noticed the pair of dark, almost wolf-like eyes that watched them from a large, gray boulder as they departed the Thorlinden. Chapter 18. A Chase. Ruana awoke with a start. She had heard something outside her tent. She grabbed her bow, put the quiver of arrows on her back, grabbed her dagger, and went outside. The bow would be mainly for show, due to her arm injury. Larky, who was sound asleep next to her, popped up and faithfully trotted after her human. Alep also awoke and did the same, except reach for his sword. Someone was standing near the horses, rummaging through the saddlebags. Alep tilted his head toward the horses. Ruana nodded in silent reply. Quietly as they could, they slowly walked toward the person. "Who goes there?" Alep yelled. The person jumped and spun around. A girl with very dark, wild hair and eyes gazed intently at the pair. She wore animal skins for clothes. Her eyes and mouth were as wide as she could be at her surprise at being caught, which was a new experience for her, as she was very skilled at the work of stealing. Though in her eyes, Ruana thought she saw anger, in place of the fear she had expected. Larky growled as the intruder spun around and ran, almost unnaturally fast. Ruana and Alep stared in the direction she had ran. They took off after her. Trees seemed to fly past them as they tore through the forest. Leaves crunched beneath them. The moon cast an eerie glow over the scene. They stopped in their tracks, the girl nowhere in sight. "Where did she go?" Ruana asked, almost breathless, after running so far. Larky panted heavily beside her human. Alep, equally out of breath, said, "I do not see her. I suppose we should go back," Ruana suggested. "Doubtless she is long gone by now." Agreed. They turned around and walked back through the woods. It was a good walk, but they were soon back in camp. "There's nothing missing from my saddlebag," Ruana called. "Is anything gone from yours?" "My copy of the book is gone," Alep moaned. "What?" She must have seen what looked like a very valuable book, which it certainly is, and decided to make off with it. Ruana gritted her teeth. Not only did she make off with at least one of your most valued possessions, she could tell anyone who hates the king that we follow him. "Likely. No telling what a thief might do for money," Alep guessed, with a disgusted tone. "But if she stole something, I should almost be glad she stole the book, so long as she reads it." "True," Ruana replied. "Let us hope she reads it." "Yes." He glanced up at the dark sky that was just starting to give way to light. "It is almost done. I will stay out here for the rest of the night." "Are you certain?" Alep nodded. "I do not think I will be going back to sleep any time soon." Ruana flopped down on the log next to him. "I am not sleepy either." Larky also flopped down next to the log and almost instantly fell fast asleep. They stayed there until morning. The girl tore through the forest. She glanced behind her. Those two idiotic brats who followed her were nowhere to be seen. She grinned. She had lost them without changing into a wolf. She almost did then, but she did have to hang on to that accursed book. She could not carry it properly if she was a wolf. She continued along the darkening path that led to the meeting place. Upon her arrival, she looked for the one she served. He emerged from his tent, fog seeming to pour out of him. At the sight of her master, she bowed. "Greetings, my lord." Did you do as I asked? The figure asked as he sat down on a log. He lit one of his dark fires, not for cold, but because he would need light to look at the girl's collection. And the light of his magic fires was the only kind of light he could endure. The girl grinned. Of course, my lord. She handed him a Lep's copy of the book. The figure snatched the book out of the girl's grasp. He began to thumb through it. His eyes widened once he realized just to whom the book belonged. He had his suspicions, but he did not have the evidence he needed. Until now. Did this come from that camp? Who was there? The book came from the camp, my lord, the girl replied. There were 6 small tents, but I don't know how many were there. Only 2 chased me. The girl had missed orgy and scaling, as they were behind the tents. Mareme dragons are remarkably quiet sleepers. The figure did not respond. He was thinking about this information. Do you wish to engage, my lord? The girl said, fingering the necklace that hung from her neck. When she ceased talking, she morphed into a dark wolf, snapping and snarling. She let loose an eerie howl. I know to whom this book belongs. I will not. Doubtless he will have an army at his side within mere moments, the figure replied, then thought, army. He turned back to the wolf. Since you're in your wolf form, go throughout all the lands, gather to me all the loyal. As you wish, my lord, the wolf replied as a wicked look grew on her face. She bowed, then darted off into the ever-growing darkness of night. The figure watched his faithful wolf run off. So, great king, he spat mockingly, you think you can still my subjects without incurring my wrath? The figure let off a bone-chilling laugh. Well, I shall certainly respond to this slight. It was a long time before the wolf noticed its necklace was missing.